right. I'm excited to be here today with my new friend, Rene McLean. So Rene, he's the CEO of SLANG and a partner at Influence, which is a cutting edge label that fuses culture, rights, and artist strategy. He helped launch the careers of artists like LMFAO and Cameron. And he's also a catalog deal maker. He has orchestrated multi-million-dollar acquisitions for Future, Tiny, Tyler Johnson, DJ Khaled, many more. And I'm excited to connect with them today, talk a little bit about where things are at right now in terms of the music industry and how can you build a legacy and culture into your brand, especially in a world where things are evolving so quickly around AI and generative music. So looking forward to having him on the podcast, having a conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Oh, thanks for having me here. Appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Absolutely. So to kick things off, would love to hear a little bit about your story. And I mean, some of the artists that we just referenced are like massive, huge success. And I'm sure that, you didn't just like start from day one, working with artists like that. So I'm be curious to hear a little bit about your journey from scratch to, reaching a point where you were able to collaborate on that level.
Okay. Well, it's a long journey, I can tell you that. But like everyone, I started out as an intern, worked at Virgin Records and then kind of went from intern to assistant, then quickly ascended to like regional promotions person and then ascended again and kept going and going. Winded up working for various major labels, wound up working with Silvio at Electro, was at RCA for a minute, worked for Jimmy at Interscope. While I was working at those storied labels, I, developed a music conference called the Mixshow Power Summit, which was like a huge DJ conference where we flew in about 300 to 400 DJs for artists to come and showcase, and that actually ran from like early 2000s to 2008. I think it started in 2000, 2008. We shut it down because the business was going into a slump with all the file sharing and everything that took us into a 15-year decline. And then just from there, I pivoted into creating an agency called RPM, where I had many clients, like, consulted a lot of labels, also consulted a lot of artists and producers, including Pharrell, Timbaland, Swizz, and Kanye on their labels when they launched them. And then we kind of shifted again and went into like the brand building business and had an agency, a small boutique agency, I guess similar to Translation, but not as big, but it's just more boutique. And then felt like we needed to pivot again, and I pivoted into, I always looking for the white spaces in the music business, and this was around 2018, 2019, where everything started to shift. Everything started to shift to streaming like 2014, 15, 16, and I saw opportunity like that private equity and finance world started looking at music a lot differently because the streaming was very transparent. You could create projections, and then kind of went out with my partner Lillette, we've been in business for 25 years, is also my wife. Came up with a strategy to launch Influence Media and find investors to back us in acquiring catalogs and building out our strategy. So it's kind of like what led us to where we're at today.
Cool. I love hearing that. I appreciate you sharing kind of the start from the beginning to where it's at now. And I think it's easy to kind of overlook those early stage, what you called like you ascended, kind of between those different roles as like an intern. Sometimes it feels like it's easy to want to skip to the end without kind of like starting and kind of building, right?
We could dive a little deeper there. I'm good with that if you want to.
Well, one of the biggest questions that just came up for me right now is knowing that the majority of our audience are really like independent artists that are pursuing a career. And you have such amazing perspective, like having witnessed the evolution of the music industry, especially from like a record label standpoint. I would love to hear you share a little bit about your perspective as it relates to the market right now for indie artists and like record labels and where things are kind of moving. Like if you had a crystal ball in front of you over the next 5 years, what are you personally excited about, and where do you think that these
I wish I
emerging
had the
trends are
crystal
headed?
ball because I'd be super rich. I'd be ultra wealthy. But I think the interesting thing about today's market is that um, even though the barrier is low to get into, put out music, create music, it just a lot of noise has been created, so it's harder actually really to break through, and
Mm,
that's kind of like a bit of a difference, right? From previously, I felt like, yeah, it was all the majors and some big indies and XYZ, and there was competition. It was hard for new artists to get signed, so on and so forth. But I just felt like there were ways to actually build, you know, um, there are other types of building blocks to build an artist's career, right? So everything is democratized right now. So you can go to the studio, put your record out at night. Now you have to develop your audience yourself before, you know, someone like myself or a major label would get interested in you because, it's just it's just a lot going on right now, quite frankly. It's a lot of I don't want to say it's noise, but it's kind of like it's hard to get people to focus solely
mm,
on music with social media and everything is going. And you had a lot. Some of the drivers previously, like with radio and MTV and all that, you could really drive an artist. And even if you were independent, and your record got hot, you could really drive it. It's kind of you can still drive it now, but it's just a totally different way of doing things, pretty much.
mm. Yeah, that's super interesting. So what I'm hearing you say is that yeah, things have shifted quite a bit in terms of democratizing the market, and that it's
Hmm.
never been easier to create and release music. But also because of that, it's also there's more music than ever. It's more noisy. It's harder to cut through. And
Exactly.
these previous channels that used to they were pretty like reliable, like MTV and a few of these channels where you could predictably know that you can break an artist through that. Now it's more noisy and it's more people are distracted. I'm curious, like in that landscape, when you are working with an artist and you're looking to like break a new artist, for example, you mentioned that now there's also some social proof indicators where even before an artist is going to be ready for a record label deal or to work with someone like yourself, they've already kind of proven themselves to the market in some sense because they've built a following. um, I guess two questions that I have for you. One,
Sure.
um, what do you feel is the right time, or who's the right artist who actually should be coming to you, and like what level do they need to be at, and why do you think that they should come to you at that point? um and yeah, maybe we start there.
Sure. I mean, I think the main thing that for an artist, besides myself, just in general, I think consistency with music and dropping tons of music and building your audience is what the most important factor is currently right now. Whether you're with someone like myself or anywhere, just to build your audience and build your fan base, because that's something you can actually do. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time to develop. And what's happening right now is that there's really not a lot of artist development happening within, like it's almost you have to almost develop yourself to get to a certain level. So someone would want to come in and be like, hey, let's place a bet or a gamble on this artist and let's invest in this artist because we have the social proof and um, you know, we see the possibility of a long term career, or that artist we can work closely with this specific artist and help develop them to get to that next level. Because we do see a lot of records go viral and things happen here and there, but um, they're very fleeting sometimes, you know? So I think like, I feel like as an artist, you really just have to really develop your audience and stick with it so you can, you know, just can't be social. You've got to be able to tour. You've got to be able to do real things in real life and get out on the road and sell tickets because that's where you're going to make most of your capital, your cash, and you know, I think that that's kind of like what's kind of missing right now, in my perspective, in the hindsight, my experience of what I've had and been in the process of working, like I said, with the Pharrells, the Timbalands as producers and what they've done for artists, and not only you know managing acts and having to help develop LMFAO to the point where you know Will I Am called and was like, "Hey, I want you to come to Interscope with me," and then the work that we did it within the label, because just because you're at a label doesn't mean you're not also competing with you're competing with the market. You're also competing in house for attention as well. So like. And you know, you have a lot of artists, young artists, who are very successful on their own, but you hit a certain point in time where you need a partner that can help take you to that next level or help elevate your potential to become a bigger artist. Whether you want to be a superstar or you want to be this mid-tier artist that tours a lot, or whatever your goal is, you have to have your tribe that kind of helps develop you with and have the connections and experience to help you navigate, you know, the possibility of where your career can go, pretty much.
Good stuff. Yeah, that's super helpful. And I think the big question that came up when you shared that, because what I'm hearing you say is that one, first and foremost, it's extremely important to focus on building your audience, you know, on your
Yeah,
own and building that relationship and to a point where, you know, ideally it's not just like a surface level connection where you can get a bunch of views just because like you know how to hack the algorithm, but it's actually you're building a real connection and people that come out to
exactly.
shows.
I mean, because I'm gonna use the old terminology. Like I brought up radios. There was a thing called a turntable hit. People would just love that one song. They know that one song, but they don't know who the artist is.
Mm,
And same, a lot of that happens too as well right now. Everybody knows a song from TikTok, or like my son, I play a record for him. Like, yeah, that's a TikTok song. I'm like, so what does that mean? Oh, it's just a TikTok song. Everybody knows it because it's TikTok. It's like, you listen to the artist? No, I'm
mm,
listening to X, Y, Z, or this or that or that.
mm.
You know?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So there's a big difference between you know, flash in the pan or someone like listening to the song because it's you know because it's entertaining without having that real connection to the artist and the brand and the relationship.
And there are
Um,
lots of artists who've had those moments, those viral
mhm,
moments, who've actually been able to transfer, you know, over to us. It's not just about that one specific song. It's
mhm,
about, you know, they made it about them. You know,
mhm,
like Post Malone, White Iverson's was huge when it first came out on SoundCloud, I think it was, and when it really was everywhere. But you know, look at where Post is at right now. You know,
mm,
like there's certain, but like once again, that was under the tutelage of like a major label who knew what to do with an artist like himself and take him to the next stage.
mm,
So you know, so like I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for talent now, but some of them are just, you know, thinking it's like, oh, I'm going to be hot forever and this and that. I don't have to do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, okay,
mhm,
once your song cools off, we'll see how really hot you are. Do you have another one and another
mhm,
one and another,
mhm,
like DJ Khaled said, another one and another one and another one, right? Because that's
mm,
basically that you're, as an artist, you're up at bat every song. It's always about the next record.
mm.
If your career is
Yeah.
going to continue to, you got to have the progress, the hits. And yeah, of course, you're gonna, miss a couple, strike out. You might strike out. You might have to come back really quick with another one. All of that is part of the process of developing it as an artist who's going to have an actual real career and longevity in this business.
Mm. It's super interesting. I mean, a couple of things that come up from what you just shared is how important progress is, and when you talk about like the next one and having something coming out, you would probably know this better than most, but it seems like even for people that most of us that are listening to this right now as like artists would dream of having a hit song or dream of having a few songs that like were hits. Um, but then if you don't, or if you aren't making progress, if you kind of peaked there and then like, and it has gone down, then that, yeah, I think the experience of that can actually be really challenging in a way that is hard to relate with if we haven't necessarily had those peak experiences yet. And so it seems like what
Well,
you're saying is that you have to have consistency.
no, you have to have consistency. A group, an artist that I signed, the Underachievers. They're currently on Slang right now, but they were signed to me previously. They constantly put out music, built their fan base. They toured. They have no records on radio, no records on but they had their audience and they literally put out their projects, sell their merch, tour, do their thing. So developing your audience is really key, and communicating with them and just kind of pulling them in. That's the key for any artist. It's the
Mm,
reason why you see all these big acts get on stage and thank their fans. First person
mm,
they thank is their fans, their
mm,
audience, and everybody else is after. The
mm,
manager, the regulate, everyone else, right? Whoever is Billy Bob, but they know who, who's the most important is their audience, and that's the key is building your audience,
mm. Super
and that
helpful.
can happen
Yeah.
in many different ways.
Mm,
That's the great thing; it can happen many different ways.
hmm. Awesome. So one thing I want to zoom back to a little bit was something you mentioned earlier around partnerships and how, really at this point, the first step is to build a relationship and build an audience and a community. And at a certain point, you might kind of be hitting a plateau or a limit where you really need a partner. You really need the right partner that's going to help you to reach the next level. And maybe it's a major record label. And I think one of the questions that comes up
It might
for
be a distributor that
mm,
that does additional services you playlist pitching, the basics, you know, or you might need more capital or more money to invest in your marketing strategy or so on and so forth.
hmm. Hmm. Got it. Yeah. So the partner depends on really where you're at, what your needs are right now.
Yeah, what
I
stage
guess
you're at. Hmm.
the question that I have is around knowing who the right partner is and choosing the right partner and entering that partnership. Obviously, there are many cases where maybe the most important decision you can make is your partner, and in different types of things too, like your
Sure.
partnership in life, like who you
Hmm.
marry, like that is a huge decision that changes so much. And probably the same thing applies to your partner in business and the people that you meet. And so, for someone like yourself who's done so many partnerships and probably seen many that are very successful partnerships, and probably seen many where it wasn't necessarily the right partnership, I'm curious what you would recommend for artists who, hypothetically, let's say that they're at this stage where they've built some really impressive results on their own independently, and now they're actually being kind of courted by different record labels.
Hmm.
How would you recommend they think about choosing the right partner for them?
Well, I mean, I think that in terms of the right partner, you kind of first of all, you definitely should meet them face to face. One.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, you're going to do the Zoom or the FaceTime, but if they're really into you, they'll come and see you or fly you up or get you where you need to go. I think you should look at it in terms of like what you need as an artist, right? Or what your team needs, right? Well, if you have a manager or you have a team that works with you, like what can that that company, that distributor or label do, or can plus up what you can do, or it might for some cases it just might be like, hey, we want to remain independent, we're just looking for additional marketing dollars and XYZ. And like in my situation, there's some acts that I'm like, hey, look, I love what you're doing. You know what? Let's just keep what you're doing and we're just going to back you. And
Mm.
everything you're doing is organic. I don't want to change anything. And then there's some acts like, hey, you know what? We love what you're doing, but we feel like you could have some better writing on these songs, or I think your pen game is really good, but I think you can get to the next level. Maybe we might set up a couple of sessions with a writing team or a producer, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to make is really great music and great records, because that's what travels. At the end of the day, if the music is songs are really good, and the A&R process is important to this whole thing as well. So I mean, like, there are a lot of different opportunities. Like, some people just might be for the cash, some people might be for the infrastructure of what they need at that point in time, depending on what level you're at as an artist. So it's kind of bespoke a little bit, but you know, um, you'll know who's really serious and really want who wants to get with you on how they approach you.
Mm. Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is that really depends on your situation and where you're at and the stage and who, would be the best kind of fill that gap, whether that's like funding or whether it's a certain infrastructure. Really, that's
Infrastructure,
what makes a good partner.
services, resources, it varies. You know.
Hmm. Hmm. Got it. Okay. And often you definitely recommend that you actually meet with them and you get to know them, ideally in person, face to face, in order
Yeah, I
to
think a
actually.
face to face is good. I mean, like, Zooms are great, perfect. You get to know people, but look, like, any artist that I really want to actively pursue myself, either I'm having them come up because I'm actually really going to invest in their career, and I need to understand who this person is,
Mm.
and I need to spend some time, with that artist, because we're gonna make an investment, whether it's from a distribution standpoint or a direct signing to the label. So like, that's just that's how I look at things.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Um, when you have someone that's there in person and you're seeing if it's a good fit for like a partnership or an investment, I'm curious if there are any like red flags that you look out for that you're like, ooh, like that's a big red flag, or if there's any things that you in particular look for that give you an indication that, yep, I think there's something here.
Yeah, I mean, well, I like to see how collaborative they are, to,
Mm.
on ideas, or taking feedback, or if they have a very strong creative opinion. And there's nothing wrong with any of those. Like I said, it depends on the artist and like what they're looking to achieve. Like, what's a red flag for me is when an artist doesn't really have an idea of who they are as
Mm.
an artist.
Mm.
They don't have a goal in mind. I think it's, I like talent who's really focused and really driven on their approach of how they make their music and the way they want to see their career, the way they want to see their image, because I think brand building is the most important part of all this at the end of the day, because you
Mm.
basically are building a brand as an artist for your audience to spend time and lean into.
Mm. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so knowing that brand is the most important thing that you can have, and this is what's going to attract the audience. For you, one of the most important things that they need to have is clarity on what their brand is and who they are and what their vision and their goals are.
Mhm.
Because if they don't have that, then they're kind of missing that essence, the thing that's the most important part. Okay, that's a great
And
segue
actually, this
into
this this actually
yeah.
takes time. This is
Mm,
part of the artist development process, and
hmm
sometimes acts need a couple of years to go through. They need to go what they need to go through to get to that point. It's a natural process.
mm,
It's like, just don't jump on a bike and ride off. You gotta
mhm,
get on there, fall, figure it
mm,
out, keep it going, and you just don't walk into the studio and make one song and then two songs. No, this is a long term investment in terms of your career and who you are, and giving
mm,
it your strongest and best shot.
mm. That makes a lot of sense. And what it reminds me of is one of my favorite analogies as it relates to brand building or like artist identity is this idea of it's kind of like you're starting with a big block of ice and you can chip away at it. And the design that you chip away at is ultimately like this beautiful thing, but it's always there. It's been there the whole time. It's just a matter of like kind of how you chip away at it and create it. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that it might take some time. If you have like a big block of ice, like you have to discover who you are, and it's okay to iterate. And you might chop off too big of a chunk sometimes, and you're like, oh nope, that wasn't right. And you can discover what it is that you want to communicate.
I mean, look at let's use some real examples.
Mm-hmm.
Rowan Chapel, right?
Mm,
She's huge. She was signed. She was let go. Through that process, she kind of developed who she was, and look at her now.
mm,
So that there's always that process of what you have to go through and develop to become. So like the main thing is it does take time, and
mm,
sometimes you don't get where you want to get to. It's just a fact and
mm,
a reality with anything.
mm, mm,
It's almost like sports. My son plays AAU ball, plays basketball. He's 14.
mm,
Of course, he has the dream to go to the league, right?
mm,
But hey, let's figure out. Let's get you through high school first, and then get you D1, and then we'll see what happens after that.
mm. So you get the steps in the ascension, the ascension ladder.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's like the build. It's like an artist. Okay, great. Let's get your first record going. Let's see where that takes us. Okay, and we got to get another one and another one and another one, and it's just it's a developmental process.
Mm. It makes a lot of sense. So what that leads me to is knowing that this is like the most important part is brand building and discovering that over time and building an audience and you know the fact that right now the A&R part is it's changed. It's sort of different where it's like artists have to sort of discover that on their own in many cases.
Yeah.
What would you recommend
Go
for
ahead.
an
I'm
artist
sorry.
who's kind of in that early, I would say for an artist that's like in that early stage and they want to develop their brand and they're willing to invest the time to figure it out and do it right, but they're kind of in this early stage where they're like, I don't really have an audience yet. I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to hone my craft. But they're kind of in that early A&R stage where they have to do more of it on their own. I'm curious what your advice would be for someone at that stage, knowing that they might not get that same level of A&R service that they used to, and they have to kind of figure that out on their own.
Well, that's the great thing about what's going on right now, right? So, before everybody went in to get signed to these labels, A&R find and discover the talent. Um, it's like at a point in time where you just need to go in the studio and just keep spitting out music and taking shots at the basket, basically,
Mm,
and create, create, create. Because the more you create, the more skilled you become.
mm,
And don't be afraid to fail.
mm,
I just saw something that Tyler Creator just said the other day, and he's like, "Yo, you got all these artists, right? And they're so precious with their music, you know. I mean, Tyler just had a huge record, and he came back so quickly. And part of, I was just watching on Instagram, and it's just like he was like, yeah, everybody's being precious with the music. No, put the music out. Feed your audience. I mean, look, he's huge. He's at the top of the food chain. He's had a hit album like last year, right? He didn't have to come back so quickly. Came back with new record, 9 or 10 records, 10 records, I think it was. It wasn't even anything crazy. And fed his audience. Do I love every single record on there? I think it's a great project. I think the project prior was even bigger. He spent a little bit more time, but he's feeding his audience, and he just came with a project. He's not being precious with it. And like I said, I just saw him on an interview. He just talked about this and like how you have all these artists, being precious with the music. Then it builds anxiety, and you become. He's like, this is why we don't have a Dr. Dre album. That's exactly what he said. It's never perfect enough. It's never this. It's never that. You have to put yourself out there. So if you're a new artist, put yourself out there. You'll find your audience. Even if it's 3 people, you'll find your audience.
That's great advice. I mean, to bring it back to basketball, since your son is playing basketball, and you mentioned shooting your shot earlier, what that makes me think of is, it sounds like what you're saying is what you want to avoid is being too precious with your shots, where it's almost like you're at the free throw line, you're grabbing the ball, and then you're just like waiting for the perfect moment to shoot it, and you're like planning your moment to shoot the ball, and at a certain point, you just got to shoot it and see where it lands, and it might not go in. But it's better to be consistent, to keep coming back to the free throw line and keep shooting it.
How
and
about
learn
this?
through
I'm gonna
that.
give you this.
Yeah.
Most artists are self-distributing when they new artists. You can put up as much as you want. You can take it down as quick as you want, and no one will know it's there.
Ha.
Right?
That's
So
interesting.
you can be like,
Interesting way to
pull
look
it
at it too.
up, pull it down, got better, put the new stuff up. Something starts happening with it. I mean, the great thing about this, there's no one written rule of how it works anymore.
Yeah. It's
There's
changing so fast.
I mean, change is so fast. Before there was like this roadmap of how it happens. No, just go make your music, pop it off, build your community. There's a new sound, a trend of music that's happening, and you're part of that's even better because you're part of like an underground culture that's going to come above ground at some point in time.
Makes sense. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that, there are some fundamentals that are slow to change, like the things that have always been important, like having a community and building your audience and building that relationship with them. But how you do it and the tools have changed dramatically. With now you have streaming that you can release your music immediately. You have social media. You have different ways that are probably gonna be different 5 or 10 years from now. But the core building community, building relationships is something that isn't necessarily going to change. So that's kind of the key thing you want to
The
bring in
thing
the
you
center.
want is to develop your audience. And for someone like myself, artists are like, I'm the next. I'm like, go ahead, make yourself the next. Opportunities there now. Previously, there was the opportunity was a lot more slimmer.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
And then also
Well,
get it going. The
yeah.
economics are in your favor too. That's the key.
And when you say the economics are in your favor, what do you mean by that exactly?
So if you have it going and it's hot and buzzing, you have people knocking on the door. You have better economics in terms of like what you can ask for or what type of deal you can get, or play it differently.
Cool. This is great, man. It's rare to be able to connect with someone like yourself who is really at the heart of the launch of many like household names, and also has been around for long enough that you've been able to see the patterns behind what works and also how much it's changed. And I know that you are a very busy person, so I appreciate you coming on here to kind of pay it forward and share some of the lessons that you've learned with our community of indie artists.
Sure, no
And
problem.
Rene, curious for anyone that is here right now who would
Hmm.
like to connect more, learn about what you're doing, or if there's someone here that has built an impressive audience and they think they're at the right point where it actually makes sense to find a partner like yourself, or someone else that can help them reach the next level, what would be the best place for them to go to connect more?
Um, I'll keep me on IG if you want. How about that? Make it real,
Cool.
because I'm constantly looking for new music, new artists. So you can go to Rene McLean. That's Rene McLean on Instagram, or Slang Music on Instagram. You know, I think that'd probably be
Perfect.
the best way and the easiest way.
All right, fantastic. And just to clarify too, who would be like the best kind of ideal fit for someone like that? Could you share in your mind who's like the ideal candidate or ideal artist in terms of what stage that they're at that you think that it would actually be a good fit for like a
Well, I
partnership?
mean, right now we're really looking at building our distribution platform.
Hmm,
So artists who are looking for distribution uh, that are up and coming, various levels. I think that's where our main focus is right now, and then from there we'll filter out like what we think are the next level investments. So like we'll go into a distribution deal with them first, help to give them support doing that, and then based upon their performance or the metrics of what's happening, we'll maybe might want to upstream them to our label.
hmm,
There's various opportunities like that.
hmm. Cool. Awesome. Well, Rene, it's been great connecting. We'll put all the links in the show notes for easy access, and appreciate you
Sure.
being on the podcast today.
Thank you. No problem.